Level 1, the Street Hustler. You work the corner of Delancey and Ninth. You unfold a wooden crate into a card table in 4 seconds flat. 3 playing cards fan out across the crate top. A barefoot lookout kid leans against the lamppost, watching for the beat cop. You shuffle the 3 cards fast, hands blurring over the wood. A dock worker stops to watch, bets the wrong card, and loses his coin. He walks off shaking his head. You pocket the coin without looking up. Nobody here knows your real name. They call you Penny, all you usually take off them. You've done this since 12. Ever since your father's dry goods store went under. A beat cop turns the corner up the block. You fold the crate flat and duck into a doorway. The cop passes without slowing. You set the table back up the second he's gone. A banker's son stops at your table, cufflinks worth more than your whole week. You deal slower this time, going for the long con instead of the short one. Your hand shakes, reaching for the middle card. Just for a second, just enough. The banker's son catches the tremble and smirks. He struts off laughing, telling friends about the boy who can't lie with steady hands. You collapse the table early and tuck it under one arm. An old man in a good coat stands at the newsstand, not reading his paper. His eyes track your hands, not your face. He folds the paper under his arm and crosses toward you. He tells you the trick was never bad. Your hand gave you away first. He says his name is Silas Vane, like it should already mean something. He gestures down the block toward a tailor shop sign on Fenwick Street. He says most boys with a shaking hand end up in prison or the river. He's offering you a third option. You glance back once at your empty corner, then follow him past shuttered storefronts. He stops at the tailor's door and wraps a coded pattern on the wood. Level 2, the Paper Man. The tailor's counter swings open on a hidden hinge, revealing a staircase down. You follow Vane down worn steps into a print shop with no sign out front. A workbench sits under a bare bulb, covered in discarded signatures. Vane sets a blank chit and a fountain pen down in front of you. He taps a sample signature, telling you to copy it exactly. Your hand shakes on the 3rd letter. Ink blots the page. He slides you a fresh sheet without a word. You practice the same signature for hours, sheet after sheet piling up. A girl about your age works the far bench, hands steady and fast. She doesn't look up when you sit down. Her name is Vivian Cross. She's been with Vane since she was 9 and lets you know it with one look. She calls you Penny, tossing the nickname across the bench like an insult. One evening, Vane steps behind you and corrects your grip on the pen. He calls it writing it like it's already true, sign it like there's nothing to prove. He has you practice signing in the air above a lit candle. Your hand stops shaking somewhere around the 100th pass. Vivian watches from the far end of the bench, arms crossed, unimpressed on purpose. On a slow Tuesday, you forge your first dollar bill clean enough to pass. Vivian holds it up to the lamp, checking every line. She sets it down without a word, which from her is a compliment. You fold the dollar and slide it into your breast pocket instead of spending it. That night, Vane lays 2 forged bills on the workbench. One good, one bad. The only law that matters here. A good forgery makes you rich. A bad one gets you caught. He tells you a signature is a promise on paper. You ask him why he bothers training street kids at all. Every great forger here started with a shaking hand, he says. The quitters never fixed it. By winter, Vane waves you and Vivian over to the crew's back table. He hands you your first real assignment chit alongside the older forgers. Vivian still calls you Penny across the room. This time it doesn't sound like an insult. Level 3, the Confidence Man. 2 years on, you're not hunched over the workbench anymore. You're running the room. Vane's crew has a mark checked into a suite at the Ashford Grand Hotel. You stand at a mirror, straightening a suit sharper than anything you've owned. Vivian pins her hair up, becoming the land agent's secretary beside you. On the workbench sits the forged deed, 11 days and a small fortune in paper. You walk into the hotel's marble lobby, deed case under one arm. The out-of-town buyer waits by a potted palm, checking his pocket watch. You shake his hand and open the deed case on a lobby table. He signs. Money changes hands in an envelope under the table. You turn to leave, deed case tucked under your arm again. A man in a plain gray coat steps into your path near the revolving door. He asks to see the deed again. Just a formality, he says. He flashes a Pinkerton badge under his coat lapel. Vivian freezes half a step behind you. Half a second is enough to be seen. You step in front of her before he can ask her name. You answer every question yourself. Deed case open in your own hands now. The detective studies the paper, then pockets it instead of handing it back. He says he wants to run it past a document examiner downtown. You watch him walk off with your real handwriting in his coat pocket. The crew scatters out separate hotel exits before he can return. 2 days later, a folded newspaper lands on the print shop workbench. The examiner's report is inside, your hand matched to 3 other jobs. Vaughn calls the crew around the workbench and won't meet your eyes this time. He lays out what a hot name costs, every job, every safe house, every printer. You remind him you saved the job. You saved Vivian. He tells you none of that changes what the ledger says now. He slides an envelope of travel money across the table instead of a handshake. He tells you to disappear for a while, for everyone's sake. Vivian stands by the staircase, arms crossed, and doesn't defend you in the room. She doesn't look away either, not once as you gather your coat. You leave through the same hidden staircase you first came down. Outside, Fenwick Street looks exactly the same as the day you arrived. Nobody on it knows your name anymore. Level 4, the Forger, a slow river barge carries you out of Callahan Bay before sunrise. You step off in a town too small for any Pinkerton man to chase. A sign painter's shed becomes your first honest job in years. You letter block type onto a butcher shop window, cash in pocket by sundown. Your hand doesn't shake anymore. That part of you is gone for good. You still carry the same folded dollar in your breast pocket, worn soft now. At the feed store counter, a farmer signs a loan slip he doesn't understand. The loan officer pockets the slip with a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. Days later, the farmer loads his family's wagon in silence. He hands over his own barn keys to a man never owed them. You study the loan officer's forged ledger columns at the county office. It's a bad forgery, just good enough to fool a man who trusts his neighbors. You spend 3 nights at the feed store studying his real signature. Late one night, you forge a full release of debt document at a borrowed desk. You backdate it and sign it exactly the way he signs everything else. Before dawn, you slide it into his own unlocked filing cabinet. Weeks later, the county clerk finds it during a routine audit. The loan officer is marched out of town by his own furious neighbors. You watch from across the street, hat brim low, and walk on unnoticed. You do the same thing quietly in 2 more river towns that spring. In each one, you leave before anyone learns your name was near it. The trembling hand was never the problem you thought it was. It was some stubborn piece of you that hadn't learned to lie without a conscience yet. One gray morning, you're mending a fishing net on a dock rail. A figure in a plain traveling coat walks down the dock toward you. Vivian stops a few feet away, out of Vane's crew colors for the first time ever. You set the net down slowly, studying her face for what brought her. She tells you Vane's crew colors don't exist anymore. Level 5, the Grifter King. Vivian leads you back toward Callahan Bay along the river road, collars up. She tells you Vane's been sitting in a holding cell for 6 weeks. Every forged deed the Pinkerton report could tie to him sits on a prosecutor's desk. She lays a newspaper clipping in your hands. The examiner's report was never an accident. The city's papers ran Vane's face on page 1 for a week straight. A rival boss named Reese Doyle paid for it, wanting Vane's rackets for himself. The real forger who signed Doyle's frame job is still walking the city free. He's using a name that isn't his, Wallace Reed. Vivian doesn't ask you to forgive the crew for cutting you loose. She asks you to help her take Doyle apart instead. Not for Vane's sake, for yours. You tell her you're not the boy who left with a coat and a dollar bill. She tells you that's exactly why she came looking for you first. Back in the city, you meet a locksmith in a cramped back room over cards. A printer's apprentice joins next, then 2 old con men Vane trained before you. You set up a new workbench in a rented room above a butcher shop. Within a week, without anyone deciding it out loud, they're taking orders from you. You stake out a card parlor on the east side of Delancey Street. Through the window, you watch Wallace Reed deal a hand with sloppy, overconfident strokes. His signatures are clearly recent work, not the years-old ones Doyle claimed in court. Late at night at your own workbench, you forge a full set of Doyle's ledgers. Every entry timed, dated, and impossible to fake in reverse. You study the pages once more by candlelight before Vivian takes them. She delivers the ledgers to the one Pinkerton man who knows your handwriting. He studies the pages under his desk lamp, unwilling to believe a forger. He wants to believe evidence, and for once, the evidence is real. He signs a warrant request that same night. Across town, Doyle reads a wire warning him his own forger's been made. He sends men to find Wallace Reed and silence him before the ledgers reach a judge. They never find him. You found him first, in a room above the parlor. Wallace Reed weighs a cell next to Doyle's against testifying and picks the second one. By week's end, half of Doyle's men have turned on him, armed with paperwork. Level 6. The Legend. Vane walks out through the courthouse's front doors, a free man. The same week, Doyle is walked in through a side door in handcuffs. You're the one who hands the deputy the ledgers, not Vivian, not the Pinkerton man. Nobody argues about whose name goes on the report this time. Outside on the courthouse steps, Vane doesn't ask for the print shop back. He asks what you plan to do with a crew that already answers to you. You don't have an answer ready, which is new for you. Inside the courtroom, Doyle's trial runs 11 straight days. Wallace Reed takes the stand and matches every forged ledger to the last comma. Not one punch gets thrown in that courtroom. Not one shot gets fired anywhere in the whole story. Every mark Doyle ever ruined gets outsmarted right back, on paper in daylight. The judge reads the verdict to a gallery with no choice but to believe it. Outside, Vane finally calls you a name that isn't Penny in front of the crew. Vivian doesn't call you Penny either. Back at the print shop, you take the first dollar you ever forged from your pocket. It's written folded there since the night you signed it clean. You don't spend it. You slide it into a plain wood frame instead. You hang the frame above the workbench where every new kid can see it. A corner hustler about 14 gets caught lifting a wallet near the old tailor's shop. Vivian brings him in by the collar, more amused than angry. You don't lecture him about honesty. You set a blank chit and a fountain pen down in front of him. You teach him to hold the pen steady the way Vane once taught you. The shaking hand was never the flaw worth fixing first. Behind you, Vivian tells the new locksmith the crew needs a second forger trained up. She already knows who she's going to ask. Outside the shop window, Callahan Bay goes on not knowing your real name. Not the one your father gave you before the dry goods store went under. It doesn't need to. Every mark, every rival, and every Pinkerton man in 3 counties knows the story of the man who could talk or forge his way into any room in the city, and out again before anyone knew he'd been there. If you made it all the way to the end, you're officially at the final level. Subscribe for the next journey, leave your ideas in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.